And we're back. Jonny here. Hello guys. Starting a new series today, Kerbal Space Program. Let's jump into it. So I've played quite a few hours of this game already to try to figure out the basics. And I'm now in a position where I more or less know what I'm doing a little bit. And so we're gonna go career mode, save name, YouTube, space program. Oops. What's wrong with my typing today? Alright, so career mode only means you have some kind of resource management aspects you gotta keep in mind. So let's choose our flag here. What is it gonna be? Goliath. Yeah. And this is kind of cool, isn't it? We'll go with this one. Alright, here we go. Difficulty options, normal. Start. So this game is very cool. I've played a little bit and thanks, I've got it. So I've played a little bit and it's a very cerebral game. You do everything from your rocket designs to actually flying your rockets, you know, performing the maneuvers, handling your trajectories and so on. So you know, there's a lot to learn here, and what I know is from the few YouTube videos I've watched and mostly from the conclusions I've drawn myself, it's kind of the fun part of this game that you know, if you, it allows you to explore your analytical abilities and your deduction abilities and just overall your reasoning and learning capabilities. So we're gonna be, you know, striving for that. So bear with me. I understand that, you know, probably most of what I do here is not the most optimal way, but you know, we're trying to find the correct way of doing things by ourselves here and trying to reason things, which again is part of the fun of the game. It's a very cerebral game. So, you know, at every point in time, and forgive me this kind of long preface, but I do want to do it. You know, at each point in time, I'm gonna be justifying my reasoning, and you know, if there's any kind of flawed reasoning or any steps that don't make sense, you know, I really want you guys to just flag that in the comments and tell me that, you know, that was a nonsensical either step to take or decision to make, whatever, and let's kind of figure this out together and just have a bunch of fun. So if you haven't ever seen Kerbal Space Program, the way it works is you have different buildings. You have buildings that allow you to assemble rockets and planes, and then you have management sort of buildings. You can hire new astronauts. You can mission control allows you to accept different missions, which in turn yield some results, some you know, recompense, some form. You have your tracking station, which allows you to, well, track vessels that you have out there. And you got your research and development. This is the science tree that we have at the moment. We're gonna start unlocking things, you know, as soon as we can. Right now we have 0 science, but as soon as we start gathering some science, we'll be able to slowly start to progress through the tree. So as you open up, again, some of this stuff I don't necessarily know the optimal way to start off, but what we're gonna do here, let's see what missions we have available at the moment. So it should be pretty simple stuff to start with. Okay, gather some scientific data. Okay. Launch our first vessel. Okay. Escape the atmosphere. Alright, should be able to do that. Actually, we can only have 2 missions active at the moment. That's fine. So let's get this kicked off. We're gonna go to our vehicle assembly building. This is where you assemble your rockets. Got it. So in terms of mods, I'm very lightly modded, so I only have information mods. So mods that show me information regarding my vessel, regarding my orbit, surface distance, that kind of thing. I don't have anything that gives me extra access to extra parts or extra, abilities or anything like that. So all you're gonna see here is from the vanilla game. The only additions are kind of utility and UI enhancements. So without that, with that out of the way, let's move on. So you can see the different categories of parts. At the moment, we have very limited parts. So we're gonna start with our pod here, and let's take a look at the missions we've gotten. So recover or transmit any science experiment data. Okay. And the other one was launch for your first vessel. All right, let's go. So we're gonna pop a parachute and a solid fuel booster. Now, yeah, we'll start unlocking things and start talking about, start talking about the different types of fuel and rockets and so on. But for now, all we need to do is launch this. We're gonna have, of course, our legendary hero, or maybe not yet, but at some point he will be, Jebediah Kerman, in the vessel, ready for duty. This is the kind of extra information I was referring to. So you see we have our thrust to weight ratio and our delta V. Delta V represents, think of it as the amount of velocity change that your fuel / rocket will allow you to perform. So again, we're going to talk more about this as it becomes relevant, but let's just try to launch our first rocket. All right, so what do we need? I like to have our orbital information and our vessel information. Okay. All right, so Jebediah is in there. So one of the missions we had, recover any science. So Jebediah should be able to just do a crew report here. 1.5 science. Nothing to write home about, but we'll take it. And he should be actually able to EVA and do an EVA report. Okay, 2.4 science. Crazy. Okay. So let's board again and SAS on. That's like assist. So it basically it will automatically kind of maintain stability for you. All right. Let's go. Full thrust. And upwards. Oh. Okay. I see that we've made a mistake here, and our staging was wrong, and our parachute fired at the same time as our rocket. But hey, looks like we survived. The first flight of Jebediah Kerman. A dodgy start for a legendary hero. Alright, well, we're gonna slowly fall towards the ground. Of course, let's speed up here. So, launch first vessel. Recover and science experiment for Kerbal. Okay, we should have achieved both our missions. So you can see we're ever so slowly approaching the flight pad. It's funny in this game how the music sometimes just goes away. Okay, so we're back to the ground. Recover vessel. And okay, we got some science. We recovered parts. Jebediah gained 1 XP. Amazing. Alright, so we have 16 science. Can we unlock anything? Yeah, we can unlock some stuff. So we got basic rockets. Let's get that. And what do we have here? Stack decouplers, thermometer, Let's get this. Okay. We still have 6 science. Of course, not enough to unlock anything the next tier. But we got some basic equipment now. We shouldn't worry too much about our cash. In fact, the way I want to do this is I will probably not do a lot of missions. What I'm interested in the most is actually having like a fun kind of what would you do if you could, you know what I mean? So we're gonna try to build space stations. We're gonna try to go to places and just do cool things. Because at the end of the day, the rewards of the missions aren't that great a lot of the times. But early on, we will need the missions to kind of just get some science and get us rolling. So we completed our 2 missions. We can now perhaps do a couple more simple missions. What do we have? Testing K, 16 parachute. That seems simple enough. Let's do that. And test hammer solid. Okay. So again, we got a couple simple missions we can do very quickly here. So let's jump into our vehicle assembly building. We can call this splasher. Very simple shoot. So we're required to test the hammer solid fuel booster, and what was the other thing? Test MK parachute. So, oh, okay, so we have some limitations here. Well, we gotta test our parachute between these altitudes and these speeds. Alright. That's interesting. We're gonna have to see how that works, because the way solid fuel boosters work is that you can't turn them off. Once they go off, they burn out entirely. So it might be problematic for us to cap our speed, or altitude for that matter. So I'll tell you what, let's try using a decoupler here. So what we'll try to do is, if we see that, you know, the rocket is just giving us a lot of acceleration, because it does give us a lot of acceleration, this new rocket. You can see we have a lot of delta V. So what I think is going to happen is that we're not going to meet these requirements, but let's try it out. So save that and launch. Now, of course, what happens if you have a rocket thrusting beneath you and you decouple? What's going to happen is that the rocket is just going to push into your capsule, and you're not going to actually decouple. So we're going to have to probably turn before we do it, and it could be dangerous, but we're going to try. By the way, we always have the ability to revert flight or reload, but we're going to try to avoid that, for the purpose of immersion and all that. So let's give that a shot. Again, let's maybe keep this up here. Test hammer. So I just wanted to see, because some components, when the mission says test that component, some components you can right click and say run test, but other components like the parachute, apparently you just gotta deploy. So I'll tell you what, we'll just do this. And okay. Alright, we gotta reach 5,000 meters, but again, our speed is like way too high. That's the problem. So I'll tell you what. Yeah, you can see that my decoupling is not doing it. Okay. Well, we're actually going so high right now. Our apoapsis, by the way, apoapsis is the kind of the peak of your trajectory, right? Like the highest point of your trajectory. Look at our trajectory right now. We're actually going into space So Jebediah Kerman is performing the first space flight. Yep. Why can I not warp? What's going on? Okay, let's speed up a little bit here. And oh, you know what we'll do actually? Where's our altitude? Okay, so we're already technically in space. We're not over 90 kilometers space. And what we'll do is EVA very quickly here. Oh, I see. So we cannot EVA until we upgrade some of our buildings. Oh well, that's too bad. Let's grab a crew report here. Get 5 science. Now, of course, I don't know if we're gonna be able to survive the re-entry because, I mean, we will, of course. And the reason is because our speed is so low. We'll survive it, but you know, generally when you're coming into the atmosphere with such steep angle, the atmosphere is not gonna break you almost at all, which is undesirable, right? So let's speed up a little bit here. Okay, so we're starting to fall down. Let's make sure that we're trying to point downwards with our ass to the atmosphere. By the way, maybe it's a good time for me to kind of introduce you to some of the pointers in the nav ball. So for most of the game, we should be just looking at the nav ball, because it really is like the most accurate kind of instrumentation that we have. Like looking at like the camera view is not something that's gonna generally be accurate. So we have several indicators in our nav ball. What you're seeing right now is the retrograde marker. That means that's the opposite of the direction we're headed, right? So the opposite is the prograde marker, which is the direction we're headed. So you can see we're pointing, right? So if this is our head, so to speak, we're pointing to that direction, going straight to that direction. So we want to point in the opposite way, so that again our ass is, you know, facing the atmosphere. And a very specific reason for that, of course, is that then the forces will just impact our flat surface here, and that will just break us very nicely as we come in. So we're entering the atmosphere here below 60 kilometers, and what's gonna start to happen is that we're gonna get some friction, hopefully, and hopefully will be enough to slow us down, because of course if you're going way too fast, your parachutes won't do any good. But I think we should be fine here. So again, just making sure our ass is pointing down as much as possible. You can see our speed is going down, but again, not if we had like 3 times that speed, which is usually the case when you're coming back from another celestial body, let's say, then we would be in trouble. But I think we should be totally fine here. So yeah, you can see we can already fire our parachutes, and we're gonna do that soon. I don't know why this patch of sea is kind of fucked up. Or we're just gonna fire our parachutes here, and we're gonna speed it up a bit. Oh, I forgot about our goal there. I thought we achieved that, didn't we? Didn't we just fire our parachutes within that altitude interval? I could be wrong. It's creeping me out. This bug is totally creeping me out, by the way. Alright, can we at least speed up so we minimize this kind of... Okay. And we're approaching... Again, we're approaching this kind of creepy glitched water. Alright. So we got some science. No XP, that's fine. So, yeah, we didn't actually get the parachute mission. Let's see if we have something else. Into flight. Okay. So we just gotta get that altitude and speed. Seems fine. Orbit Kerbin. Our first orbiting mission. I don't know if we have the gear to do that yet. What is this? Test. Okay. So, again, I'm kind of underwhelmed by some of these missions. They just kind of come across as a little boring. So we'll try to do our own thing here, and we'll only do the missions when we're short on cash or something like that. But for now, what do we unlock? We got some science here. So we have stuff in survivability. So that will give us a heat shield for re-entry, barometer to get some science. I kind of like this. I think that's gonna be the pick for us. Have some stability stuff, some extra rockets. For now we don't need that. I think we're gonna go with this. We actually have some science left. Okay, not enough. So let's just get that crappy mission out of the way first. So we, what was it? Just get a smaller rocket here. So we just gotta get to upwards of 5 kilometers and fire our chutes, and that should do it. Let's go. Alright. So, altitude. Oh, I screwed up. Okay, I jumped the gun too quick there. Damn, that was so close. 200. That pisses me off. I'm kind of tempted to revert, but I did say we would try to not do that, so we'll go ahead and just recover our vessel. That's fine, we're learning here. This is all drills for Jebediah, getting his feet under him. We have great plans for him. Alright, let's speed this up. I really want to get this information out of here. Hang on. How do I get rid of that? Give me a moment there. I'm just trying to... Oh, there you go. Yeah, we don't need that information. That we already have that. So, I think we'll keep the advanced heads-up display. All right, cool. Let's try this again. Cover vessel. And we'll just relaunch. So in Kerbal Space Program we have 2 moons, and of course instead of the Earth we have Kerbin, the glorious Kerbin planet. And we're gonna be very soon exploring both of those moons. And the closest one is actually very similar to our moon. Let me just make sure I got my parameters met here. We should be able to get this. I'm just kind of concentrating here. Boom. Done. Alright, so don't have to worry about that. We can just speed up now. But yeah, so the closest moon is actually very similar to the moon. And then the second one is actually a very small body with very little gravity, which is gonna be fun. So probably our first big milestone will be getting to a stable orbit around the planet. And for that, we're gonna need a bigger rocket. It takes a lot of delta V to actually get into a stable orbit around the planet. So hopefully we'll get that soon. We'll go for a nice landing here. And Jebediah can come out of his ship. Let go, Jebediah, let go. Okay. He can take an EVA report, get some science. Board, get a crew report. Okay, cool. Recover. So we got those kind of trivial missions out of the way. Let's start thinking big here. Well, we got some science. We can even perhaps unlock yet another basic rocketry, perhaps. Okay, interesting. Maybe some basic winglets is what we want. So let's save our science points and just figure out what we need here, because again, I'm no expert in the game, so we're just kind of figuring things out as we go. So what do we need? We have heat shields now, so let's just pack one of those. That's ridiculous. Okay. That's gonna be our re-entry capsule. That was weird. Okay. And okay, let's just try to think here. So usually the best way is gonna be for us to have like a 2-stage rocket, probably. So we have like one stage that gets us through the atmosphere, and then like one last stage that pushes us into a stable orbit, is what I'm gonna try to do here. So, you know, actually let's be a bit smart. And okay, let's save this as the orbiter. And we'll actually get that mission. We had a mission that gave us some cash if we got into a stable orbit. So, orbit Kerbin. Yes. Will give us some Kerbin bucks. We don't care too much about it, but, you know, might as well take it. Conduct a focused... Nah. Okay. Let's go. So... what do? Let's try with, let's see what we have available to us. So at the moment we only have, okay, we got some fuel tanks. So I think what I'll do is I'll have like a small stage at the top with one of these swivels. And the idea is that this is maybe not enough. Actually, I'm looking at it, but we have very good thrust to weight ratio, so maybe it will work. We'll try it out. The idea, actually, you know what? Better to overkill this than to look like an idiot. So let's just pack this thing with a lot of fuel, and then we're gonna have a first stage that's gonna get us into, hopefully, you know, into a kind of out of the atmosphere. Maybe. I don't know if, like, looking at the numbers, if this is gonna be enough. Probably not. But we're gonna give it a shot anyways. Let's just make sure we got our staging here. I wish I could just remove the... Yeah. Can you... Do you mind? Thank you. So, I had a Steam notification pop up there. So, let's go... Let's just make sure that when we decouple this, we're firing the next rocket. Then we decouple this. Okay. Always good to double check your staging, because I've had a lot of problems where I have a mistake there and then the flight is a disaster. So, Jebediah Kerman reporting for duty. We're gonna give this a try. We don't have any stability, so we don't have any winglets or anything, so I'm not gonna try to maneuver this thing in any way. I'm just gonna try to have it go straight up. See how high we can get with this. Because we did add a lot of fuel, which then in turn, you know, adds a lot of weight. We're about to run out of fuel here. Okay, we don't need to go into fucking terminal velocity here. It's fine. We've reached... Okay, so our apoapsis is already desirable, but it doesn't look like we have enough delta V to get us into orbit. Not nearly enough. So the way this is gonna work is we're gonna wait until we're almost at apoapsis here, and once we're close to apoapsis, we're just gonna fire and we'll try to get into orbit. But of course, I don't think we can do it with this amount of fuel. I don't think we can. So we can speed it up a little bit here. And what we're gonna do is we're gonna start burning when we're like 30 seconds out from our apoapsis. That's kind of a compromise, because, you know, ideally you would like to burn all of your energy exactly when you go into apoapsis. That would be, like, on paper the most efficient way of doing it. Let's fire it up here. But of course, in a real world, it takes time for you to burn the fuel, so you can't just burn it all immediately. So okay, so that was a pathetic burn, right? So that did not get us anywhere close to an orbit. So instead, what's gonna happen is we're gonna decouple this shit. We're gonna try to face with our ass down again, and we're gonna return to the atmosphere in shame, having failed. So what failed there? We don't have nearly enough fuel, and of course the rocket we're using in our upper stage is also very hungry. It eats up a lot of fuel. And so, you know, the little fuel tanks we've brought with us are just not enough. So Jebediah is gonna have to be happy with just yet another kind of suborbital flight. Alright. You can see our speed is very manageable here, so we've got nothing to worry about, basically. So we're just gonna speed things up. And fire our chutes. And we're gonna be fine. You can see our shadow fastly approaching there. Your shadow is actually the best guide when you're landing stuff in this game, because, you know, anything else in your view is like pretty inaccurate sometimes. Aside from the actual, you know, the displays that we have here, there's some other displays that you can check, but so the orbit did not happen. Jebediah is disappointed, but we'll get there. For now, we recover our vessel. We get a little bit of science out of that crew report. Yeah, we got a little bit of science, ever so slowly upgrading our space program. And our first milestone remains to get into orbit, and we'll do just that in the next episode. Thank you for joining me. I was Jonny, and I will see you next time. Bye bye.